for a treat. We have a deep immersion in the world of breakthrough D2C excellence. We've got privileged time with one of the most exciting leaders of one of the most celebrated, fast-growing scale-ups in the world right now. So before we get into it, I'll just give you 90 seconds on me. My name is Neil Barry, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of 21st Century Brand. We are the strategic brand consultancy that was founded by the team that built the Airbnb brand from 2014 to 2018 into what became the sort of most influential, valuable brand in travel. Our mission is all about helping the leaders of the world's most influential brands really create positive change and exciting commercial growth. And we work with the likes of Peloton, Bumble, Pinterest, Headspace to help them lean into their brands, to grow purposefully into the mainstream and do it in a way which reshapes their categories for the better. Which brings me on nicely to the work that Shira Foyer is leading at Trini London. So Trini, if you could just start off by just giving everyone here a couple of minutes, both on Trini, for anyone who doesn't know, and your role and remit there, please.
Sure. So Trini Woodall built a career originally in TV, and a few years back, she started a beauty brand. So Trini London came from her history of working with thousands of women and understanding what they wanted. So she founded the brand starting as a makeup brand a few years ago. Now we've recently launched skincare. And the goal of this brand, it's a global digital-first beauty brand, and it's really about giving every individual the confidence to be their best for who they are today. So meaning, we don't want people to feel like they should look like they did or feel like they did 20 years ago. We want them to feel their best for who they are right now. So that's what we focus on.
Great, and just talk a little bit about your role as well.
And so my role is CMO, so I cover marketing and growth for the business, acquisition, retention, creative, and brand, and of course community, which is a big part of our brand.
Brilliant. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the Trini London journey. So, you know, in many ways it sounds like the dream. 5 years, growing to over 60 million top line revenue, I believe. Just tell us a little bit about the different chapters that you've been through in your short but intense life.
Sure. So I joined about a year and a bit into the business. So the first chapter before me was really about finding product market fit, which they did quite quickly. We're lucky that our products are really good and people like them. So that happened pretty fast. When I joined, the focus was more on how do we start to really scale? How do we find our hero products? What products are driving the most retention? How do we create the best possible content we can that people really engage with and drives the highest reach? And how do we build a really strong, lasting community?
Okay, so that's the chapter we're in now.
Oh, and then I should add, so we went there, then it was COVID, so that was definitely a big chapter for us, and with that, we were quite quickly trying to figure out how we could leverage our ability to create good content, to really bring joy into people's lives at a time when they needed a distraction. So that was quite a big chapter, actually. Okay. And then the latest chapter is launching skincare this year. So that's been a huge change for us, going from one vertical into a second. So lots going on. Great.
So then getting to the main topic, the meat of this, we're all here to get wisdom on this. So many D2C brands fail to reach the scale. You know, you're only early on your journey, but you fail to reach the type of scale that you have. Talk about the pillars of your strategy, content strategy, your overall marketing strategy that have helped you do what so few managed to do.
Sure. So I think it starts with how do we build trust as a D2C brand. Okay. We can't rely on the association with retailers, so we need to do that ourselves. And how do we acquire new customers in what is quite a crowded space in beauty? We're thinking about how do we maintain the strongest retention and lifetime value, and how do we build advocacy and word-of-mouth recommendation. That's a very big part of our growth over the last few years and will continue to be, we hope. How do we create the best possible content? Because I think of us, as much as we are a beauty brand, we're also basically a content production house. That's the volume at which we're creating content. That's quite sticky content that people are watching for a long time. So we need to keep doing that and keeping it new and entertaining. how do we use data to drive all our decisions, which seems standard, but it's not always easy, and how do we continue to get better and better at that? And then finally, how do we build our community, the Trini tribe, and not just in size, but in depth? How do we make sure it maintains that genuine community feeling, which is not like a buzzword, but actually true?
Okay, so trust, retention, the content pillars, and community. Did I get all?
And data.
And all underpinned by data.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. So then let's go deeper on two of those, the content side and then the community side, if we can. So just go a bit further into, again, so many brands that I work with want to have a really strong content strategy which really engages their users, drives earn reach, and so on. But so many brands fail to do this. So what is your approach, and what do you think it is that you're doing right, maybe that some other brands don't grasp?
I think that our content is genuinely authentic, which is such an overused word, but I really think it truly is, because when I joined, I've worked at a lot of great companies, including Burberry, where I was really trained on brand, and I was trained to believe that every asset and every tweet should look as good as a spread in Vogue, and that was where I came from. Right. And I joined the business, and they were making what I would refer to as sort of rough content on an iPhone, and I was like, no, it's not good. And we tried to, in the beginning, we tried to make sort of slicker, more produced content, and it was my biggest failure in the company, easily, because it tanked instantly. So the learning is the content needs to be very real and relatable, and if it looks a little bit rough, as long as it's still on brand for whatever your brand is, then it's good. And so we go out of our way to not make content that looks like advertising.
Right. And does that relate back to the mission in terms of making people feel good as they are?
Absolutely. I mean,
now?
but it's lucky it works out that way, because, I mean, I don't know, if I went to a brand that had a very different ethos and I would be thinking about this, it would be tricky, because I know now the performance of that real content alongside seeing your friends' content is just, it's so much better. So it would be very hard for me to ever go back in the other direction, I think.
Okay. And you mentioned performance, and let's talk a bit about that. Talk about how you, give me some of the headlines on how you're measuring success on different horizons of all the work that you're doing.
So we're a venture-backed startup, so we definitely are looking at growth, and we're looking at all the growth metrics, from new customer acquisition and revenues to a lot of loyalty and retention metrics. So we absolutely look at that all the time. But we also are looking at how people engage with our content, because for us that drives our reach, and that's the long-term play in terms of growth, because you might be in the audience of our content for years before you ever purchase, but then eventually you will. So we're thinking about that in the long term. And then we look at our community, and we look at how they engage with the community, and that's hard to measure, but we know it when we see it, and everyone in our team very closely pays attention to the kinds of things people say about the brand, and in the community, that's sort of the heart of it, and that's where we get it at the highest level. Okay,
so the two tracks, obviously the really critical commercial, lifetime value, signups and so on, but then equally engagement in the short term.
Well, engagement for us is, we look at every piece of content that we create, but we're looking at how that reach is growing over time on different channels and different markets. So for example, we have a disproportionately high US audience on YouTube. That's really good, because we want to grow the US a lot more. So how can we lean into that? So it's not, yes, it's short term with each individual piece of content, but it is much more long term when we look at the big picture.
Okay, so the signals from that then inform long term investment.
Absolutely,
Understood. All right, community. This is one of my obsessions. Community-powered brands is a huge buzzword, but also a growth area that we see. And for me, having worked with Airbnb a lot, I've seen the power of that firsthand, and Peloton too. Really want to hear more about your approach. I know it's such a big part of your growth strategy, and just what's special about your brand. Tell us about the Trini London community.
Sure. So when we talk about our community, we're talking about the Trini tribe, which is a group of Facebook groups around the world. So we have a global tribe, which has just hit 50,000 people in it a week ago, I believe. And then we have regional tribes, which are smaller groups around the world that now in total, it's over 80,000 people at the moment. So all of the regional ones are led by what we call ambassadors. They are not paid. They are people who are just really passionate about our brand. And then we do run the global one, but it's very much driven by the people in it. We're very light touch with our involvement, very intentionally, because we think it wouldn't be as good if we were more heavy-handed in there. So it's an interesting dynamic because we really value them and we want it to continue to grow, but we know if we get too involved, it'll ruin it. So it's amazing. It's the nicest place on the internet. I really suggest anybody who's interested in this kind of thing, join the tribe just to see how people treat each other. It's refreshing and it's nice and it'll make you smile. Like there's nothing else like it.
But what do you mean it's the nicest place on the internet? Is that just you drinking your own Kool-Aid?
It's not.
Or,
I'm telling you, it's not. The way it's mostly women. It's not all women, but it's mostly women. So the way that they lift each other up, and it's so positive, and people feel safe to share content of themselves in there that they wouldn't on their own channels out in the world, and the way people will find anything to compliment them. So they'll be like, that scarf brings out the color of your eyes. They'll find, anything that they can hook onto to say something nice, they'll do it. And it's a really it's a beautiful thing to see, really it is.
Okay. And so it feels very like a powerful expression of the mission.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's something that we really take quite seriously because we think it's truly unique. And I have never seen anything like it for other brands, so I feel really lucky that we've got it.
And it's there, and you help. You mentioned that you have to tread quite lightly in terms of your involvement. Do you get involved in sort of incentivizing people to sort of advocate for you and get involved in products and all that level of it?
The ambassadors get access to our products when we're doing a launch so that they can talk about it if they want to. We treat them like influencers in that sense. They also get discounts, the ambassadors, on products, but beyond that, there's no incentivization on purpose. We don't want it to be biased. There was an example in our global tribe a while back where there was quite a heated thread about one of our products that some people liked and some people didn't.
Yeah.
And one of the members of my team said to me, should we shut this down? Should we delete it? And I was like, absolutely not. Because by having it not be 100% positive all the time, you believe that it's true. Like as a user, you're not going to trust it if everything seems glossy. So having the honesty is what matters.
Okay.
And so we don't want to incentivize it. We want people to be advocates because they love the products. So at the moment,
I think that's a really important lesson. A lot of brands would have shut that down, I think, and it's a testament to the confidence that you have. So a lot of people here may be thinking, could we be doing more for my brand, or if it's an agency, could we foster a similar thing? We were talking about this before we went on stage, but do you think it's a particular thing because Trini has this really special sort of product and audience connection? Most brands can't really achieve this, or can most brands potentially have a really powerful community?
I think any brand can, I really do, but it's about finding the hook what is the deepest emotional thing that people care about in relation to what you sell, not the product itself.
Okay. All right, so it is possible.
I think so.
I agree. If you can find a meaningful connection, I've seen all sorts of different ones, from Lego to GoDaddy to Peloton. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your purpose now. The purpose, the mission of Trini. You're a mission-led brand, and you talk a lot about making beauty more inclusive.
Yeah.
It's a big term. It's used in lots of different ways. What does it mean for you at this stage in your journey to make beauty more inclusive?
We do want everybody to feel included when it comes to our brand, regardless of sort of category. I think what we're probably most well known for relates to age, and that's something that applies to every single person in this room. You are all getting older by the minute. As much as we don't like to think about it, it is true. So the beauty industry notoriously is obsessed with youth, still. You might have had the campaign for Real Beauty from Dove many years ago, but sadly, we have not made huge strides since then. So for us, we want that, whether you're a 40-year-old or an 80-year-old, we want you to feel like you can still feel your best and be your best, and you don't need to try and make yourself look like you're 19. So for us, we're probably most well known in this area because most of the people in our content generally are, I don't know, 40, 50 years old. We do have every age, but we go out of our way to show actual people, mostly women. We are not overly photoshopped at all. We Photoshop extremely minimally. We like to keep wrinkles in. We like to show people for what they actually look like, because then, again, going back to the trust, it's really important that if you're buying makeup on the internet, that you know what it's really going to look like on your face. And so it needs to be true. If it's overly photoshopped, you're not going to believe it.
So how do you, so many brands I speak to in this area, they struggle with two things. One is, how do you market to older audiences without signaling that this is, like for me, I'm a 48-year-old guy. If I feel like a brand is actually trying to speak to me as a 48-year-old guy, I'm not wild about that probably. So and the other thing connected to that, I guess, is balancing authenticity and aspiration in what's a very aspirational category.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit how you balance those things.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to feel like an old lady brand. That's very important to us. But the point is that you shouldn't have to feel old, regardless of how old you are. We're very fortunate. We have a 58-year-old founder who has more energy than any human I've ever met before, and she is a testament to the fact that age is not a real thing. It's only in your head. So we are lucky in that sense, and we do really push for the energy and the joy, and that's what our community is really good for. In terms of being aspirational, I'm not naive, and I do believe that with any product, you want to sell the finished product. So if I'm buying a car, I want to see what the car looks like at the end. I don't want to see it halfway through it's being built. So I do want to show people once they've used our skincare routine or once they've got our makeup on, and we might show before and after, but I want to see the after. I don't only want to see the before. Just like, and I feel that way about any product category.
Okay.
So I want to know what I'm buying.
Understood. Okay. Good advice. Right. So it's all sounding very amazing, and it is very amazing. But I can't believe that there hasn't been some challenging moments on this journey. Marketing itself, most marketing leaders I speak to are at times sort of both exhilarated and exhausted in equal measure by the amount of change going on. Talk a bit about some of the toughest moments for you personally, the biggest challenges as you've been on this roller coaster.
It is challenging. I mean, the growth has been pretty crazy, and it's not easy at all. We went into, when I joined a few years ago, we were 30 people. We're now around 200. Managing that change and managing the teams through that change can be challenging. I've got a team member who's been working with Trini since before the company launched, and I feel very proud of her to see that she's been able to deal with it was her and a couple people, and now it's 200 people. It's not easy to deal with. Having COVID thrown in the middle of it was not easy. Learning and adapting to work in a totally different way, which I'm sure everybody here had the same experience. But when we were at that pace of growth and not knowing what was going to happen and not wanting to slow down and managing different types of personalities and believing, like for me, I believed we could continue to grow. And sometimes I had to convince people that, like, no, let's keep pushing. And in the end, we're fortunate, right? But it's hard. It is, and it's tiring. Yeah, we work long hours sometimes, and we're lucky. We've gotten there, and we have a really dedicated team, but it's hard.
Just keeping that conviction up, what do you think, how did you manage that?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I think it's just having a team that everybody really believed in what we're doing. And I think it's being a purpose-driven brand. When we went into lockdown, the focus wasn't let's sell more products. It was, okay, what kind of content can we create when everybody's remote? How's Trini going to film at home? How's everybody going to edit remotely? How are we going to keep creating good, fun stuff when everybody's sick of watching the news?
Okay.
And I think having that kind of as a goal in mind was quite helpful.
So looking back to the purpose for a new frame at that moment was helpful.
Absolutely,
That's good to hear. Okay. You're in an interesting position in that you, in some ways, there's two brands. Like, you're in a fairly unique, you're managing a powerful brand. There is also a founder with a very powerful personal brand herself. So as CMO, I can imagine that has specific nuances for you to navigate? Talk a little bit about how you manage those two brands.
It's a great question. Trini's very, very involved in every element of the business. So it is, at the end of the day, her name's on the door, and so she wants to make sure that everything represents her well. So it's a very close working relationship, and it's making sure that we have all the right touch points and that she feels she can trust what we're doing.
Yeah.
And we do, because we create the content in my team for her personal channels as well, it means she has a very close direct relationship with some of the more junior members of the team who are doing that. So it's all very tight-knit, and it's about managing it in the most efficient way. And that's probably the challenge, is how can we continue to do the volume of work that we're doing across a brand that sells products and a brand that stands for a lot, that's a person. How do you, because we do so much content, it's how do you do both? How do you prioritize across both? That can be interesting.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot to do, and how do we get it done and keep evolving, keep getting more creative, and keep moving forward?
Quite a lot of my experience, even when the companies get to like decacorn, 10 billion status, the founders can quite often be very involved in the writing of things. Is that something that happens? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like a good example, right now we are literally trying to coordinate a meeting, and schedules are difficult because we're going to be creating a new TV commercial.
Okay.
And we have script, but we know that Trini likes to put her stamp on it, so we don't want to move forward until, and she has been known to rewrite scripts before, so we know how she likes to work at this point, but we need to find the time to be able to do it.
I've had almost any founder I've worked with has been the same as that. This is always a useful thing. Any founder whispering advice for the people here?
Oh, I need to take the advice more than I can give it, to be honest. I'm not sure.
All right, I can give one bit of advice, which is, I think that conviction is the most critical thing that I see, because in my experience, a lot of founders, they will automatically challenge you just to see if you're really convicted, because they've had to fight so many battles to get to where they want to be. Like, oh, you're so smart, you're this marketing person. What about this? And it's not, and I used to take that quite personally, oh my God. And then it became clear it was more like I'm not saying Trini's like this, but almost like a shark sensing for weakness. But,
I mean, Trini's a very smart, strategic woman. So she's, I give her credit. She's good with that kind of stuff. She absolutely does do that. But she also comes up with really good things too. So it's when we disagree that I need to prove to her that I have good reason for disagreeing with her. And she does listen and she does learn. So I respect that a lot.
No, that sounds like clearly the growth is testament to your productive relationship. All right, good. Well, I think one last question really for this is, it's really just any closing thoughts for all of us as we think about our own chances of driving breakthrough D2C growth and kind of crossing that chasm from being a pretty niche, performance-driven entity to where you are today, really creating an iconic brand at this point. Any final words of advice for us?
I think that for any D2C brand, there's a lot out there that makes it seem like it's a performance-driven formula. Mm-hmm. And the problem with everyone following the exact same formula is that it becomes commoditized, and you can't break through because everybody's doing the same thing. And there are elements that you should absolutely do well when it comes to performance marketing, for sure, but that doesn't differentiate you. So my advice would be to look to inspiration just as far away from your category as you can, whether it's within marketing in totally other verticals completely, but better than that would be looking to art, to entertainment, to nature, to get your inspiration for what you do from things that have nothing to do at all with what you're doing, and that will make you different. So that's what we really try to do, particularly with entertainment, but we take our inspiration from all over the place, but the place we take it from the least is the beauty industry.
Really?
And I think that works in our favor.
So no formula, the key ingredients, but no.
Yeah.
I think that's important for everyone. And is inspiration a practice for you? I'm interested in that. Is it like, how do you make sure, because it's so easy to get your head down, how do you keep your team inspired? How do you stay inspired?
It's a good question, but I do think it's something that we as a team are just constantly sharing loads of different things, and it's become a cultural thing in the company, and people are used to sharing really random stuff. And because we also like to create reactive content, that helps, because so it's a bit systematic in that sense. But there isn't one answer, but it's just how do you embed it into the culture of the business.
Very good. All right, thank you very much. It's been most enlightening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.